the world is also changing very rapidly.
Yes.
So in order to keep up with the world, yes, a lot of resources have also come, but you also need to take extra effort to continuously keep yourself updated every time, staying relevant with the times. Online learning, especially, it works very good when you are trying to upskill yourself. Now the world is changing at a very fast pace. Now, obviously, data science courses are coming, correct? A lot of generative AI courses are also coming. To stay updated with these technology, right? You'll obviously have to go through these online learning materials because you can do it at your own pace.
Correct.
And a lot of it you will already know. Because rather than that, if you go to academia to learn data science right now, right, they will teach you a lot of things which you already know. Rather than you can pick your own course and learn at your pace. No one can predict the future, right? We can't make a 90-95% accurate model. The entire approach of this is to make better decisions, to not make 100% accurate decisions, but to make better decisions than what we were making yesterday. Google has a very good framework to do that. How do you write your projects on your resume? Okay. So what they say is it's a XYZ format. You're trying to say achieved X or maybe accomplished X by doing Y, which is measured by Z. At the core, objective of every business is to make money.
Yes, definitely.
Revenue. At every step, you'll have to find out how can I use some data science or some analytics to solve this problem. The biggest driving force was curiosity and the urge to solve some problem.
Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Intellipaat Talks. Today we have with us Mr. Amitkumar, who has transitioned from a mechanical background to a lead data scientist. So let's hear it from him, how his journey has been and what motivated him to join this journey in data science.
Hi Wasim, thanks a lot for inviting me here on Intellipaat Talks.
Yes.
And yeah, directly coming to the question, what motivated me to join machine learning and data science, right?
Yes.
So I did my bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering. There I was anyway dealing with a lot of applied mathematics problems which were more related to physical process like heat transfer, fluid flow property. And since then, I always had an inclination towards mathematics. And later on, I started working with a couple of oil and gas industry firms. And there I was building these mathematical solvers to simulate a lot of physical processes. And when we are building these solvers, we used to generate tons of data, tons of numerical data from these solvers. Okay. And now the main question is, how do you analyze this data, right?
Yes.
So that was my main need to at least start to understand about data analysis. Or statistics.
So, sir, do you think your inclination towards mathematics and your expertise, of course, did that anyway help you in your journey?
Inclination to mathematics, yes, but I would not say that was the biggest driving force. The biggest driving force was curiosity and the urge to solve some problem. And mathematics, the way it does is, right, it is just a quantitative way to look at the human world or to look at all the problems. And then what I do and I've been doing since that far is using mathematics to solve any-day business problems or even our life problems.
When you say business problems, so let's just deep dive into what kind of business problems are we talking about? Let's say you mentioned oil and gas industry.
Mm-hmm.
There could be any other finance, fintech or any other industry. So what are these business problems that we're trying to solve using data science or mathematics or any of these things? What are these business problems that we're talking about?
Mm-hmm. So let's take any business, right? At the core, objective of every business is to make money.
Yes, definitely.
Revenue. And
Yes.
that is calculated by revenue.
Alright.
And let's say you can use finance as a language to understand how a business functions.
Okay.
So if you really want to solve a business problem, right, you need to first understand how the business is working effectively, how the revenue is being generated, and where exactly the company is spending money, right? Because in order to generate a revenue, you will have to run multiple operations. You might have to build multiple products. You might have to run multiple services. So what exactly about your company is going into operations, and those account as your operating expenses. Now, when it comes of solving a business problem, you can do only two things. One is you can either increase the revenue
or reduce the cost.
Exactly. Now, how do you increase the revenue? You will have to look at entire revenue stream of the company. Which means how exactly, even if I'm earning a single dollar, how exactly that single dollar is coming to me, right? Which product is giving me, which customer is giving it to me. And if you want to look at it as a process, right? Just imagine business as that you are buying something from someone, you are processing it, and you are selling it to someone.
Yes.
Correct? So now you can break down this entire process into multiple steps. Right now, let's break it down into 3 steps, right? The first part, where you're buying something from someone, correct? Or maybe you're producing something, or you're manufacturing. So let's say, for example, you are in a manufacturing industry. You're making ICE engines, or you are making automotives or automobile, right? So now there, how can you decrease your cost? That is optimizing the existing processes, right? Optimizing the manufacturing process. For that, for every industry, you'll have to step by step break down to a very granular level every process, and at every step you'll have to find out how can I use some data science or some analytics to solve this problem.
So at the end of the day, it's either reducing costs or generating more revenue.
Yeah, and
So
a combination of that can also be looked at increasing the operating efficiency.
All right. When we say operating efficiency, we obviously need a lot of data. So how is that coming in these sort of sectors? When you say manufacturing, how do I understand, okay, this is the data I can measure. So if I'm manufacturing a good, which could be any automotive, I'm not sure. So how do you efficiently reduce the operation cost, or where is the data coming from?
So very simple example would be to look at the sensor data itself, right? When you're manufacturing something, or let's say, for example, another example which I can give you is from oil and gas industry. So right, we used to drill huge oil wells, right? And every oil well used to cost in millions. And how do you optimize the production from those wells, right? That is what is going to give me more revenue or reduce my cost. So how do you increase the amount of oil you draw from that well? And for that, you understand the entire process of getting oil from the well.
Okay, so coming back to a little bit of your journey. So you transitioned from a mechanical background. Obviously, that helped you a lot. So you also mentioned when we were talking earlier that software development is a part of data science that is very crucial for anybody who's going into this space. How did that work for you? How did you start in software development? The programming languages, the skills, tools, what were important and what are still relevant in today's day and age? Obviously, because you started a little while ago. So what is also relevant in today's day and age? Because when we see skills required in data science jobs now, in today's, like this month, if I look at it, there'll be a lot of skills like machine learning operations on the cloud side. There'll be big data engineering. Earlier, it wasn't like this. If anybody used to know any machine learning algorithms, Python programming, statistics, machine learning, all these things, then it was good enough. So the expectation has become a lot more from aspirants. So how is that space?
So I think your question consists of 2 parts. One is how was software development happening earlier, right? And machine learning, the entire machine learning operation, which is a kind of a different approach than pure software engineering.
Yes.
So when I started my career, I used to build these mathematical tools for physics simulation, right? And that time we used to write everything in C++. So entire software was written in C++. It was like millions of lines of code distributed over multiple files. And then you compile that software. Over there, I learned how a software development process works.
Okay.
And then post that, I picked up Python. And mostly Python was being used for data analysis a lot. That time R was also being used.
Yes,
R still is being used, but the limitation of R is that it's very difficult to put it into production. It's not more of a software development language. It's more of a analytics language, which has good application limited to academia. But when you're trying to build a software product, right, which is running on huge scale, which is running on continuous automated workflows, that time you need something which is more closer to a software development approach, and Python kind of serves that purpose over there.
So we can definitely say that Python is one thing that you have to learn.
Definitely. Python, there's no avoiding Python. You will have to learn
when it comes to programming languages, I think it's safe to say that Python programming is something that everyone should know.
Yeah, true. And in case even if you are not doing any data science, data analytics, right, still nowadays in today's world, you need to learn Python.
Why would you say that, sir?
Just pick up any simple problem.
Do you think Python is easy to learn?
It's much easier than a lot of other languages because it's very human readable format, and it's very similar to English language text. You just need to build the logic, and you can work with Python. Whereas for C++, you might need to learn a lot of object-oriented programming concepts,
Yes.
and a lot of how compiler works and how do you compile the language.
All right. So when we say it's easy to learn Python programming, can we also say the same thing for data science?
Well, easy or difficult is a very subjective question. And right, the way it works is, if you know one language, it's very easy to pick up another language. But the first language what you're trying to learn will always be difficult, because that time you don't know how a software program works, right? What exactly a language. And once you know the entire process of how that language works, right, what steps you need to take care, what syntax you need to take care of, then any other language picking up, it will be a piece of cake.
All right. So let's just suppose, sir, you have just graduated from school. So you're deciding on to going to college, learn new things for your career. How different would it be from what it was a while ago when you joined college? Let's say if you had to join now and you want to go into data science. So what are things that you would do differently?
So one major difference between when I graduated and now is we had very limited learning resources.
All right.
Let's say, for example, in that time, if you had to learn something, you actually had to register for a proper formal degree and learn about that.
Yes.
We did not have any YouTube videos. We did not have any online courses. Literally nothing was there. The world was not that connected. Let's say, for example, nowadays, if you want to learn something, even if you want to learn Python, you can just Google it up. It will give you 10 different examples, 10 different tutorials. Even if you want to learn how to use Python in a very specific business case as yours, right? If you search a little bit about it, you'll see tons of application which shows you step by step how do you use some algorithm or something in the actual business problem. But that is something which we did not have that time. So education wise, it has tremendously grown right now. It's very easy to learn, but also that adds one more challenge. So in the past, when you do your degree, let's say any form of engineering, be it mechanical, be it computer science, you kind of stick to that field through a major portion of your career, right? Because not much is gonna change in those times. But now the world is also changing very rapidly.
Yes.
So in order to keep up with the world, yes, a lot of resources have also come, but you also need to take extra effort to continuously keep yourself updated every time, staying relevant with the time.
Right.
Because today we are talking about data science, right? After 10 years, we don't know what it will be.
I think we are seeing a lot of development in this area with generative AI. There's a lot of buzz around generative AI, but it has been in the industry from not just with the onset of ChatGPT. Before that, also people were working on deepfakes. Were a thing back in 2019 when people were creating deepfakes of Vladimir Putin. You know, a lot of circulation of these videos. I think that was also generative AI and generative adversarial networks. Then NASA was using it to create asteroid images. So it's not something new that has just emerged. But there has been a lot of buzz around ChatGPT, and now everybody is talking about generative AI. What are your thoughts on that?
So yes, I agree that generative AI has been in the scene since quite some time, but you need to see the core difference between ChatGPT, or I would not say just ChatGPT, any language model which we are talking right now, right?
Yes.
Let's say, for example, ChatGPT is one of the language model created by OpenAI. We have some open source tools like Llama, which is created by Facebook. Then we have something Indian version of that, which is Mistral. So these are language models, and the other previous ones were vision model.
Yes.
And the reason it is getting this much hype is because humans interact with each other in terms of language. How are we talking with each other, right?
Yes,
language. So this is kind of trying to encapsulate how humans communicate with each other. And which vision models, yes, they had very limited use cases, right? I'm not denying they did not have use cases, but the scope and use cases were very limited. Whereas if you look at ChatGPT, just imagine it's a language model, right?
Yes.
Which someone who understands language. Now you can create multiple layers of application on top of it.
Definitely.
It is just a base building block right now.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with freezing the layers and fine tuning.
Yes, that is one approach to look at it, right? Yes. But what happens? So what you are referring to is called as fine tuning or or fine tuning these generative models, right? But one concern over there is it's very expensive. So by expensive, I mean, let's imagine you'll need 10,000 GPUs running parallelly, and to retune one model you might need days or even like hundreds of hours. And the main purpose is, why do you even want to retune, right? Point is, you want to hyper tune or retune it, or is because you want to train it on your data, correct?
Yes.
Otherwise it's just a very generic model. You want answers from your data, that's why you want to retune it. But now what industry has come up with something called as RAG, RAG, that is Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Can you please explain to us, sir, what is RAG?
Yeah, sure. So Retrieval Augmented Generation, essentially it works along with the language model. So I'll just give you an example, right? So let's say, for example, you have a ChatGPT interface or something. So right now, how do you do it? You will ask something in the ChatGPT type box,
Yes.
and you will ask some question. Let's say, for example, give me something like this, right? And ChatGPT will answer. Now, in order for that language model to work efficiently, you will have to give it some contextual information, correct? Some context, based on that, the language model can answer something. Let's say, for example, some documents from my own company.
Create my resume. Like that.
Create my resume, right? Yes. So there you give a contextual information. But now what happens for when you go to big companies, right? This contextual information itself is huge. It can't be done in let's say, for example, ChatGPT has some 4,000 token size limit. The input can be 4,000 token limit, right? So how do you do that when your token limit is 4,000? If your context is less than 4,000, then you don't even need to retune the model. You can just ask ChatGPT that give me answer from this context, and it will give you the answer. But this is where RAG or RAG comes in usage. So now what do you do is, let's say, for example, your company has some 10 different products, right? And each product has its own user manual, correct? And each manual has 100 pages. So eventually you have some 10,000 pages of something, right? Of some document. And now if you build a chatbot on top of it, a customer or help chatbot on top of it, a customer will come and try to search, okay, tell me how do I use this device, right? So ideally what you should be doing to use generative AI, right? You should be giving the corresponding document which belongs to that product
and then
as a context and give it to ChatGPT. But manually, how will you? Obviously manually you can do that, but if you have millions of documents, how you do that? So this is where RAG comes into picture. That is Retrieval Augmented Generation. So here, what do you do is you download the word embeddings. I hope you know what word embeddings are.
Word embeddings, something to do with the NLP where you have.
Yes. So when all these ChatGPT and all these models are trained, right? OpenAI and all these models are trained. So they have their own vocabulary. By the way we have our English vocabulary, in the system, they have their own vocabulary. And each word or sentence is represented by a vector of numbers.
Yes.
Right?
The corpus, if you
the corpus, you can say, but it's a vector. Each word represents to a, let's say, for example, a vector with dimension of 512, right? One word itself is represented by 512 numbers.
Alright.
And now you download this number in your local machine, and you use a similarity matrix between your question
and the question that is
and the context. Okay. So now, before even going to ChatGPT, you are just trying to, using a mathematical way, right? You are trying to find out what is the context corresponding to my question.
Okay.
Now you club both of them and give to ChatGPT. So here you are eliminating the entire retuning process.
That's
and
quite interesting.
There are multiple frameworks built on top of it, right? Something you might have heard of LangChain.
LangChain, yes.
So that is basically chaining these language models. So you do something like RAG, right? And then you get output from that. Now just imagine this all works when you're trying to solve a very simple problem. But when you want to solve a complex problem, how would you do is, you would manually break it into different steps, correct?
Okay.
And now using LangChain, what you do is you invoke a language model at each and every step of this entire process.
It could be a different language model.
It can be anything. It can be ChatGPT, it can be LLM, or you can train by yourself. But yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot of time and resources.
It's not advisable. I also asked one of the professors when I had a chance, okay, why don't we start working on an LLM? And his response was, somebody has spent their years and years of expertise and spent a lot of money on creating something. Why don't you just leverage it? Why do you want to create your own?
True. So it's like, why do you want to reinvent the wheel?
Exactly. So using any of these generative models in the LangChain, you're saying you're dividing the problem into small pieces, and then what is the output like? Can you tell me one of the examples if you maybe have worked on?
Okay, let's take an example of writing an article. Okay,
sure.
Let's say, for example, you are writing a research article.
Yeah.
First step, what will you do is you will
Decide what I want to write on.
correct. You will decide your topic. Once you have decided your topic, you will go through multiple research papers.
Yes.
Correct. So that comes your literature review phase.
Alright.
And out of that literature review, you will identify couple of main contexts which fits into your narrative, right?
Yes.
Based on what topic you are trying to do. This is the first step. And once you have done enough amount of research, then you kind of try to build your content as a first draft.
Alright.
Right? And once you have built your content around first draft, then again you iterate over it, right? You again look at it again, you build your revision as a second draft where you know what you want to add more, right? You want to make it more purposeful, or you want to beautify the English, or you want to show more impact. So those things comes with iteration. Okay. So now just imagine same thing how this can be done using a language model. Right? First step. Yeah, you just give it multiple articles, you tell it the topic, and you will tell the
Can I
language.
also use it to choose a topic for myself? I
Yeah,
just give it
definitely.
a context. Okay, this is what I'm doing. I just want to write a paper. You just give me
True.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that as well. So now at every step, you're gonna invoke one LangChain function.
Oh, like that.
So and you will be passing output of first LangChain, right, to the next one. So whatever you're trying to do manually, you just need to define it. Okay, because now I know, right? First LangChain, it will be like, given this context, do my research and give me the main points, right?
Okay.
And once you get those main points, then again you can give those points again back to the model, and now tell it, this is what I'm trying to conclude with this my article. Now use these points which you got in the research, and how do you build the entire story? Because the thought process is definitely yours, but you don't want to spend time on writing every word, right? Once you get that, then again you do it, ask it to make a couple of iterations, right? You think, okay, now make it more impact, make it more aligned with industry application. I mean, there can be different ways of it. Just imagine whatever you would do by yourself, you can invoke one language model in the mean step, and that's how you create your entire process, by chaining the output of each language model.
Language models, LangChain, everyone. So also I wanted to understand. So when we were talking about data science, the objective was either generating revenue or reducing cost. So when we talk about generative AI, like I mentioned, the LangChain. So what is the trend like in companies who are working on these use cases, and what is the objective? Like, what are they trying? Are they trying to reduce cost? Are they optimizing on revenue? What is happening? Like, how are big firms or companies are using or leveraging generative AI in their daily use cases?
I think it's cost. Definitely, cost is always the biggest sector where market wants to always capitalize, right? Yes. And that is also the major area where Gen AI models are being used right now. Let's say, for example, something like a customer chatbot, where a customer comes to your website. Let's imagine you have a insurance company, right? Yes. You are selling insurance. Now a customer comes to your website and it tells you something about this, that, okay, give me a
estimate.
Give me a personal insurance, right? Okay. Now, definitely it will give you estimate, but your entire system has 100 plans, right? Every plan is suited to different user. One plan you have made which is suited to a maybe entrepreneur who is earning in millions. One plan is suited to a local shop vendor. One plan is suited to IT folk, right? Everything is suited for a different person. Now, what this using ChatGPT, you can streamline this entire process of finding what is the perfect product for that exact customer. Right now, people are doing it manually, right? Someone
will
from
analyze,
the company,
put their brain into it, understand these are the needs.
Exactly.
Okay.
One more case is that it's being heavily used in research as well. Yes, industry it is being used, but heavily used in research. I mean, it has a potential to change the rate at which human understanding is increasing. Also, yeah, human race is evolving. Because earlier, what used to happen, if you want to, let's say, for example, research, let's say, assuming you're researching something, right? And you want to learn about some topic, there are like hundreds of documents. You don't even know what to read. Exactly. And not everything is accessible. Plus, on top of that, you don't even have time to read that much, right? Exactly. And everything, a lot of times it is written in a very convoluted way. Plus, every document you find will have only a very small section of it which is actually relevant to you. So, using ChatGPT, you can filter out, or all maybe using LLM, you can filter out what you just want, and that's gonna increase the research rate a lot.
Also, there has been a lot of debate about efficacy of these responses that language models generate. How do we put our like work around it. Like if I, let's say, I'm studying something or writing a research paper using, for example, ChatGPT, how am I so sure that it's going to give all the responses that are correct? Like, what is the efficacy? How do I evaluate the performance? Like, can I solely rely on the responses given by ChatGPT?
You can't rely on it right now, and I don't see that complete reliance coming in near future as well.
Alright.
See, just you imagine you will be using it as a assisted tool.
It
Correct?
can make my things go faster.
Exactly. But at the end, you are always the one decision maker. Just imagine it like a calculator. When a calculator, does it mean that your need was gone out of the system? No.
Not
You are still adding 2 plus 2, but now you're using a machine to do that. Same thing, you are delegating a lot of laborious work to the machine.
Alright. Or coming on to the industrial side of how things work. Because obviously we do not know how people who are in data science, actually do the day-to-day task. And if, let's say, if you had to form a team, what are things that are very important to you? Let's say if you want to form a team right now, what are things you will be looking for? Let's say that there is a business problem given to you and you have to just quickly get on top of it. How are things going to be like?
Mm-hmm. So you are asking this like from what skills I'll be looking for, or what kind of people
Like
I'll
a
be looking
holistic
for?
approach. Like you have to also make sure all the skills are there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to form a new team. You have to be in the recruitment as well. You have to put yourself in the recruitment process. What are the type of assessments you will be looking for? Like in general, everything that that team will require to get the job done.
All right, perfect. So before we go into the details, let me put it in this way that when we want to hire a candidate, right, what are we even looking for? So let's imagine you are building a data science team, correct? And because this is what exactly happened in my last organization. So I was the first data scientist over there.
Alright.
And when I joined the organization, I had two roles: work with the product managers and business heads to first identify and understand what applications how can we use data science in the company, right? Because when you go as a first person, no one else in the company understands what data science is.
I was coming on to that. I'm so sorry, sir.
Sure.
So you mentioned that you were the first person as a data scientist in your organization. How difficult was it to convince people, okay, this is evidence-based, some proof or insight that I'm providing it to you? Sometimes people have that hunch, okay, this might not work, but you are coming from a data perspective. This is the data what was telling me. Was there any conflict of sort?
Yes, obviously there will be conflict, but since you come on from a data perspective, right?
It is easier to convince.
It is easier to convince because you actually have evidence in front of you, right?
And has it ever been where the insight was telling something else, but the actual event, I'm talking about a predictive analytics sort of thing. Let's say we have forecasted some value, but it was nowhere near that.
Yes, definitely, it will happen. See, when you create any model, right, that model gives you what is the highest probability of something happening. It does not mean that the other thing can't happen.
Alright.
So yes, definitely use cases like that will definitely exist. See, no one can predict the future, right? We can't make a 90-95% accurate model. The entire approach of this is to make better decisions, to not make 100% accurate decisions, but to make better decisions than what we were making yesterday.
I think it's high time we should stop calling it a prediction. Okay, moving on to that, so the team building exercise that you were talking about.
Sure. So let's say you first sit around with your product managers and everything. Now you realize, okay, you want to build a couple of data products in the company.
Alright.
Right? And to build the data products, what do you need is you need some understanding of what problem you're trying to solve. What problem is your product trying to solve, correct?
Yes.
And once you do that, you will need to build your predictive models on top of that. And once all these models are built, you will have to put that into automated infrastructure, right?
Alright. When you say automated infrastructure, can you give an example?
Let's say, for example, if you take Netflix right now, correct? Okay. When you open the Netflix web page, what do you see? You see a lot of recommendations.
Yeah, based on my history, I will see a lot of recommendations.
Correct. So that entire process is happening in a automated way, right? So whenever you are watching something, the model is continuously tracking what have you watched, and model stores the output into some database. And when you again open the Netflix page, right, whatever output was stored by your model, that will be automatically fetched into your user page, into your TV screen or something. So there's no human intervention involved here, right? which takes building a lot of software architecture, a lot of data engineering pipelines, a lot of machine learning engineering pipelines to build this entire system. And based on these three work categories, right, we can get three roles. One is data analyst, other is data scientist, other is ML engineer.
So what is the difference between a data scientist and ML engineer? Aren't both of them well versed in machine learning algorithms?
Yes. See, if you look at from skills side, right, both of them will know probability and statistics.
Yes.
Both of them will know modeling. Both of them will know algorithm. Both of them will also know little bit about machine learning engineering. That is deploying part. But the core difference between them is data science. Most of the job is focused on building models, understanding of the problem. How do you create better models? Whereas the major role for a machine learning engineer is to pick up the models which a data scientist has built, package it so that it can be put into the existing infrastructure of the company.
Alright.
But that also that's not a pure software job. You also need to make sure that your ML engineer also knows what exactly monitor metrics are being used. Because there's something called as model monitoring.
Okay,
so once you deploy your models, right, you need to build a system which is continuously monitoring the accuracy of your live models. So that let's say today you build the system, and after 2 months you want to see what was the accuracy of the system. So this every month or every day this model is also being tested against the live data.
I think this is what somewhere correlates to CI/CD.
Yes. And then ML engineering overlaps in a huge section with CI/CD, that is continuous integration and continuous delivery.
So also when you mentioned Netflix, I wanted to understand, let's say for a very small implementation which is giving me recommendations based on my activity, what is the amount of data that is being generated from my end that not just Netflix, any other streaming platform might be generating based on my activity, and what is the amount of models that are being trained so that I get those recommendations? Like what is the entire process like?
So again, it depends on company to company. If you are a small,
you can talk it in a general sense, like in a streaming platform where there is a lot of data being generated. What is that amount of data that I am generating based on my activity? How much significance does it have on those models, and how many models have they actually created in that automated environment?
So just look at it that the way we discussed about LangChain and everything, right?
Yes.
So similarly, just imagine you need a model in every step of your operation. That would be the ideal scenario. But obviously it's gonna be expensive. So the company also needs to take a trade-off that what are the biggest pain points I have in this entire journey, and build models on top of that. Otherwise, a model can be built on literally each and every step of the pipeline of the business process. Let's say, for example, since you asked about OTT or Netflix, right? So someone can even monitor, let's say, for example, what previous history have you watched, right? What kind of movies do you watch? Based on that, they can categorize what is your genre, what do you like. And let's say, for example, if you are watching a movie, how much are you even completing that movie, or you're just watching, or you're not watching it, right? Because then there you get to test the efficacy of your recommendation system. Let's say you are recommended someone some movie, and he decides to watch it for 10 minutes, he got bored and he turned it off. Which means you need to work on your recommendation system more.
Okay. So that's how the evaluation is being done. That is also being talked about. So my reason was for asking you this was, I recently read about a startup which is leveraging data science and AI. What they are doing is they have a system which generates data, or calculates. Gathers the data from a very big, let's call it a farm, and then they predict the faulty system in that entire farm altogether, like a week before, which is reducing the operating cost and the maintenance time, whatever they're losing. So this is one use case that I've heard about. How many of such use cases can be there? Because my perspective has altogether changed. I can now say data science can be everywhere. You just need to know how you can generate the data. So what is your perspective on this? Like, what are the use cases that somebody like you who's always working in this environment can think of? Like, what are the possibilities with this?
So what example which you gave right now is right, that's called as predictive maintenance.
Alright.
And that is one of the major use case in a lot of manufacturing industries or
Yes.
operation based industries. Like agriculture is one thing you mentioned. Any manufacturing industries, one what you mentioned, power plants,
Power plants.
there you need to do that. That is, so predictive maintenance is very much useful in heavy industries or manufacturing industries. Whereas in customer side as well, if you see, right, marketing, right, your
Yes.
campaign marketing, how do you improve your campaigning, how do you improve your marketing, that is also being done. Then there's something called as lead conversion model, where you try to rate the probability of all the sales lead you have and then actually chase only the ones with high probability, right?
Can you talk more about this lead conversion model?
Okay. So lead conversion models, let's say for example, you have a real estate company.
Sure.
All right. And you have run a marketing campaign and where people came, they entered their name with you, right? They showed some interest that, okay, I may be interested in getting this thing. They enter your phone number, they enter their age, they enter their location, where are they coming from, and maybe they enter their job, what are you doing.
Yes.
Correct. Now, like this, you have collected information for 10,000 people.
All right.
These all are your leads, right? But to convert all these leads, you'll have to use your sales people, right? Sales folks to actually convert them to a potential customer, right? Basically, you'll have to call them, follow up with them, understand that what do we offer, understand if they have any questions. But imagine if you're gonna have 10,000 things like this, right? 10,000 customers, potential leads like this, you can't chase all of them.
Yes.
Correct. So you will have to find a probability of what is the chance of converting some lead into actual customer. That probabilistic approach you can do using a classification model, right? What is the probability of some given customer to actually buy my product? And then when you actually go to the field, right, you take only 100 or 200 of the highly probable customers and you put your sales
Focus
team
your
behind
energy
them.
more on
Exactly.
those. So in cases where there's no way of generating data, let's say you get a business problem that has no way of giving you any past data. Have you faced any of those problems? If there is a problem where there might not be historical data available, like past data is not available, so you might have to generate data for that problem. Is there anything that you worked on similar to on these lines?
Yes. So that goes in part of your experimentation and data gathering part, right?
Yes.
So let's say, for example, you want to solve some business problem, but you don't know you have data.
Okay.
So a lot of times what you will have to do is you will have to set up a system which gathers this data. Before even setting up the system, you have to first figure out what data exactly you want to gather, right?
Yes.
You need to define each and every variable, each and every feature which you think which will be helpful in this in solving this problem. Then probably depending on your use case, right, even 6 months or probably 8 months of data, when you have that, you can at least start building some base. See, you will not be able to do the complete project or build a 100% model in the first go, right? But that's how everything in life starts, right?
Yeah.
You start with small chunk, you build it slowly, iteratively.
All right. And coming on to the assessments, sir. So when we talk about data science recruitment, not recruitment, I would say interview process. What is the process like in firms where there can be different roles? Like you mentioned data analyst, data scientist, machine learning engineer. What are the other roles that are available to people who are, well equipped with a little bit of information here and there? Like let's say somebody knows Python programming, they know statistical analysis, machine learning algorithms, they might be aware of regression classification problems. What are things that as an employer, what are the things that you would look for? And as a candidate, what are the things that you suggest people to work on?
So let's say when we are hiring someone, right, the biggest question we need to look around is, how is this person going to add value to my organization? Okay. That is the biggest metric, right? And that's why we hire people as well, right? You are trying to get some value out of this thing.
Yes.
Now, if you want to break this bigger problem into two things, right? Two skill sets. So you can consider something like a behavioral skill and functional skill. Okay. So behavioral skills come in handy almost in all sorts of job. Doesn't need to be applied to just data science, right? Because here a couple of them are, let's say for example, communication.
Yes.
You need to be really good at with communication, and communication does not mean English.
Okay.
That is something which I used to think for a very major portion of my studies, right? Communication is not English. Communication is how do you communicate a broad
Your thought
idea,
process.
broad entire thought process to someone. That is one part. Plus, at the same time, how keenly can you listen and understand what someone else is saying? Because see, at the end, you are not building anything for yourself. When you go to a company, right, you're not building anything for yourself. You're trying to solve someone's problem.
Yes.
And who is this someone? You need to work with them and understand what they are trying to say. So that communication definitely goes into it. And the way we judge your communication, right, is during the interview process itself. There won't be any separate question for that, but the way you answer your projects, right?
Alright.
Do you answer your projects in a very structured way, something like a star response, right? Or do you have like randomly say one word here, one word there, and like you are also kind of fumbling, right? So that's where we judge the communication. Then second other thing,
Functional abilities.
yeah, functional. Yeah, before going to functional as well, one thing what we necessarily look is for your appetite to learn, because we don't expect someone to be perfect on the job on the day one, but we expect them to have that appetite to learn, because no one can know everything, right?
Definitely.
And as Socrates has said, the true wisdom lies in knowing that you know nothing. So
That's
that
very wise.
openness and willingness to learn about everything, even from your juniors, even from your seniors,
Anybody.
even from your peers, it does not matter. How much are you willing to learn? And when you come to functional skills, then as we discussed, right, these three roles: data scientist, data analyst, ML engineer. Three skills have a huge overlap. That is probability statistics you will need, visualizations you need, correct, and looking at the problem you will need. When you are more of a business analyst, you need to have more of a domain understanding.
Okay.
It's okay if you don't have much hands-on experience with the ML engineering part or deployment part, or let's say modeling part, but you need to have very good understanding of the business. So people who come from more of an MBA background or some more closely related to business, they can go into data analyst thing. And plus, if you are coming with MBA background plus data analysis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So later on, it can actually also lead you into product manager or data-driven product manager or product owner path as well.
Alright.
Because there, a product owner, product manager does not need to know how exactly it works, right? Does not need to know the entire coding part, but he needs to know business better. He needs to know how he can merge data science application with business.
Okay.
Then the second is your data scientist. He needs to be really good with your algorithms. And the biggest thing is problem solving. That is the biggest thing which you need to look at a problems at a data scientist. And there are multiple frameworks for problem solving as well, right? One which I typically like and use it a lot is called as design thinking framework.
Alright.
It's a design thinking process. We can discuss about it as well. So that is something which a data scientist truly need, because see, models everyone can make, right? At then, if you also might have seen, right, what does it take to a model? It is just SQL and .fit, something
Exactly.
.fit.
No,
That's all a model building a model is.
Yeah.
But what problem are you trying to solve? How do you break that problem into features, right? And how do you create an entire process on top of it? How do you use those features to come to your final conclusion or to address your main problem which you are trying to solve?
So very interesting answers. So I was expecting somewhere on the lines of SQL, Microsoft Excel, all those things. But you have mentioned something very interesting, and I would like to learn more about it. Obviously, the audience will also like to know more about it. The design thinking process that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
What is it, and how do you work around it? Like, I am very interested to know what this design thinking process is.
All right. So design thinking process, you can use it to solve multiple scale of problems.
Okay.
Now let's take an example where we are trying to apply it specifically to the data science process. Okay. Now imagine I have joined a new company, right? And I have no idea what is happening in the company. I don't know what the challenges are. I don't even know what the model they are trying to build, right?
Okay.
So first step will always be design thinking process can be split into roughly 5 parts. One is your empathize.
Okay.
Second is your define. Then you ideate, then you prototype, and then you deploy it.
Okay.
So I'll go step by step. First is empathize. By empathize, what I mean is, right, that since you say, okay, I'm there to solve some problem, but whose problem are you trying to solve? Is it the customer? You need to empathize with the customer, right? You need to talk to the customer. You need to understand what are their problems, what are their challenges, what problems are they facing. But again, you're not just solving customers' problems, you're solving companies' problems as well, right?
Yes.
Now, company will have multiple business head, one operation head, one sales head. So they also have their own challenges. You will have to talk to them. You'll have to shadow their work. You'll have to have multiple discussions with them just to understand what they are doing, just to empathize with them, right? Just to understand what is troubling them, what is bothering them. And a very good way to do that is you make a journey mapping, you do a journey mapping of all these personas. So all these things are called as personas, right? Your business head is one persona, your customer is one persona. For every persona, you create what journey they are going through. Let's say, for example, if it's a customer to your OTT platform, correct? Okay. He first gets through some marketing or something, he gets aware about this thing, right? Then he onboards. Then onboarding, after that, he engages with your product. Then after engagement, he exits your product as well, right? This is the entire journey a customer has. Similarly, your business, any business process also can be broken down into a journey, right? How it is evolving over time. And once you break this journey, right, at every step of the journey, you can think what problem is he having that time, right?
This is very interesting, sir. And I would like to know more about, let's say, if I am trying to move into this space. Since you mentioned I need to have a problem-solving skill set, a mindset which encourages me to solve problems, business problems. How do I put myself in front of the employers? Like, let's say if I'm coming from a background which has nothing to do with the software development, or I have not worked in the deployment environment. How do I tell the employers, okay, I am a problem solver, I have an appetite to learn, I have these skills? Do I go into the forums, the communities where people of the similar space are portraying their works? Should I create a portfolio? So what are the things that anybody who's trying to learn can do in this space?
So there are multiple ways to look at it. One of the ways which I kind of prefer is doing hands-on projects, right? And now there's not much limitation of like openly available projects. And what it does is, right, when you complete a couple of projects, it gives you what exactly the problems are you are trying to solve. You can see, right, by yourself, okay, this is the problem this company is trying to solve. And once you do that, and when you go for the interview, you need to explain not just the process, what you did in the project, but you also need to explain that why did you do something, right? So focus more on what and why rather than how. How part will definitely come, right? That is the core part of everyone's job that you can't avoid. But figuring out what do you want to do and why are you doing this, right? Even in interview as well. I mean, that's my personal experience from a lot of interviews, right? So when I conduct interviews, a lot of people will come and they'll say, okay, we have done this, and probably they know all the different sorts of algorithms. They probably, in a lot of cases, they will know much more tools than what I know. They will know much more algorithms than what I know. But the major problem lies is when you ask them the question, right? Why did you do this? Well, how is this adding value to the business?
Okay.
Why? Right? I mean, otherwise you can make like infinite amount of models, but what's the use of those models, right? So that's one question you always need to ask yourself when you are learning as well. What are you trying to do? Why are you trying to do? How? Obviously, it will evolve. Plus, the same thing you should be able to demonstrate in your resume and in your interview. Now, how do you demonstrate it in your resume, right? That's a critical piece.
That's a big challenge.
And so Google has a very good framework to do that. How do you write your projects on your resume? Okay. So what they say is it's a XYZ format. You're trying to say achieved X or maybe accomplished X by doing Y, which is measured by Z. And just to give an example of this is, right, it can be something like reduce operation cost in a manufacturing industry, correct? This is your achieve. What did you achieve? You reduce cost, correct? What is your why? How did you do it? Maybe using some vision-based model and automating some process, right? That is your why. And measured by what? How do you measure this? And this number is always very important, very critical, right? Measured by what I mean, how are you measuring the cost which you have reduced, right? You are saying you have reduced the cost, but did you reduce the cost by 2%? Did you reduce the cost by 10% or 15%?
What's the measure?
Exactly. The number does not matter that much, but what it says, right, that you know what it is trying to say. It just tells the interviewer about you, that okay, you understand that what is the entire impact of all your work.
All right. A very great insight on how you can put your projects on the resumes, the XYZ approach. I think we are going to quote that and put it into one of our shorts as well. So coming on to the very last segment, where I just want to talk about how there's a difference between what academia gives you in terms of data science and what people are actually doing in the industry. As you've mentioned, the problem solving approach. These are not the things that they'll teach you in, for example, an institute. They will obviously tell you a lot about the theoretical knowledge. They will have a lot of exercises where you have to put it to good use, also measure your performance as well. But we can't be very sure, right? People look for areas where they can gather this knowledge and come up with something that is giving them end goals like a job, for example, in data science. Where does online learning on these sort of certification programs, do you think it helps in those cases?
Yes, online learning, especially, it works very good when you are trying to upskill yourself.
Alright.
See, let's say you completed any graduation course, right? Any graduation, any masters,
Yes.
right? Let's say you did some engineering or you did some MBA, and you did that 5 years back.
Yes.
Correct? Now the world is changing at a very fast pace. Now, obviously, data science courses are coming. Correct? A lot of generative AI courses are also coming.
Yes.
But you can't expect someone who already has one formal education to go to school again, right?
Again.
Because education takes academia takes like 2 years or 4 years of your time, right?
Yes.
But where this thing comes as part of is, right, so look at data science or any other skill as one of the skill set in your skills.
Alright.
It's not that if you do some data science course, you're gonna just be a data scientist. At the core, you're gonna be engineer. At the core, you're gonna be an MBA, right? But the way you have Excel as one of the skill sets, similarly, you have data science as one of the skill set. And with time, a lot of new technology will be coming, and to stay updated with these technology, right, you'll obviously have to go through these online learning materials, because you can do it at your own pace.
Alright.
And a lot of it you will already know, because rather than that, if you go to academia to learn data science right now, right, they will teach you a lot of things which you already know. Rather than you can pick your own course and learn at your pace and learn only what you need to do. But what interesting thing academia brings is the network and exposure. See, they're going to teach you almost similar subject, nothing much different, right? But the kind of people you interact there with, the kind of real world cases you listen from their professors, right? And the real world interaction, the real world exposure is what you are getting more in academia matters than just
I mean, yes, obviously the innovations, if I am not wrong, those are coming from academia itself, because they are working on research and developing new projects that industries might not be working on. So there's always a conflict between academia and industry in these cases, where which one is better. That's a debate for another discussion. But let me just ask one more thing, since you mentioned upskilling. So what is the trend in data science industry like nowadays? What are people looking to upskill on?
So now Gen AI is definitely one core area where people are trying to move.
So when we say Gen AI, what is it? Is it the generative AI tools or the generative AI frameworks? What is people trying to upskill on?
More inclined on the generative AI frameworks, because see, there are very limited company who are actually doing the proper creating these large language models, right?
Yes.
And in future, we don't expect everyone to just create these models, right? In future, industry will want to spend their resources and time on using these existing tools for their applications, and that's where the market also that's where the job market also will be going, right? The demand for skills where you can use these generative AI models, which includes a lot of tools like LangChain, learning about the vector databases, learning about RAG, learning about transformers, right? How do you actually pick up a model which is either an open source model or any language model, and how do you build a complete application which caters to your business need? That will be definitely one sure thing to
So do you
look
think
forward.
working on LangChain is one of the key skills right now, and an employer might be looking for
LangChain, yes, it's good, but it itself is at a very nascent stage right now. So tomorrow we don't know, something better than LangChain will become, and LangChain is not the only thing. There are a lot of competitors as well. See, that space especially itself is evolving, and industry has not able to figure out yet how to adopt it. They are trying to figure it out, right? But it's an iterative process.
So it's safe to say if you can work around your language models, if you know how to work around them, fine tune it, you're on a good path.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the current scenario, it looks like a good path, but don't rely only on
Just
that.
solely
Right?
on
Just assume that that is also one of the skill sets in your entire toolkit, right? That is not
one of the XYZ you can put in your resume.
exactly one of the XYZ you can put, because tomorrow you don't know, something else might come. You will have to upskill with that. You'll have to learn that.
All right, sir. So I think we have reached to the end of our conversation. Just one last question I want to ask you. What are the forums or online platforms or any newsletters that you personally use to stay updated on the data science trends? Is there something that you want to tell us about?
I think the best way I use it, I Google something, right? And whatever articles come through, I read through most of them. But there are a couple of top websites like medium.com or Analytics Vidya. These two give me good information. But I think now what happens now, if you Google something, right, then some new thing is coming up in that area. Google itself will give you a recommendation of some article which is being published by someone else. So it's more of a chained learning, right? You read one article, from there you find something else interesting, then you read that, then from there it keeps on building on top of it.
All right. And just one last more thing. So what I have seen is people who are very senior in their industries, they look at generating something on ChatGPT as it's frowned upon in their circles. So how often do you use ChatGPT? Do you encourage the use of ChatGPT as well in your teams or wherever you want to implement something on your workflow?
I mean, personally, I do use it, and I find it very helpful. It reduces my time a lot, especially the thinking time, right? Let's say, for example, I want to read something on Google, right? I might have to go through 10 different articles, and through that 10 different articles, I'll have to formulate the answer for my question. But whereas if I use ChatGPT, I just ask it a question, and it will give me a very structured way for that. And there are a lot of ways to efficiently use ChatGPT, right? So you can do very basic prompt engineering course.
Yes.
And the intent is not to become a prompt engineer, but the intent is just to know how to use ChatGPT efficiently. Yes. And the other reason which you mentioned, right, a lot of industries still frown upon using ChatGPT or something like that, because see, industry wants something which is perfect and usable, right? ChatGPT or any LLM model, it is still at a nascent stage. Yes. It still hallucinates a lot, right? Because there they are not dealing with fake projects, right? They are dealing with actual projects. If the ChatGPT workflow does something wrong, because of this, they might have to go through some legal issues, or maybe a lot of loss in revenue or something. So everything needs to be checked and monitored there. So it's maybe that also one reason. Plus, are they even willing to share their private company information with ChatGPT? Right. That's also one big issue there.
All right. Sir, it was a very nice conversation with you. On the end notes, do you want to tell our learners something about if they want to switch to data science, or just want to upskill in data science, learn something new for their understanding, get a new badge in your current achievements?
Sure. One thing I can say is, in terms of data science upskilling, yes, but also in terms of any upskilling, that it is going to be a long journey. Don't expect something, okay, you do one course and you know it completely. It will take you time, and during this time, you will go through multiple emotional challenges. Let's say, for example, when you start to learn something new, right, you will be overwhelmed just by looking at the amount of resources, right? There's so much to learn. And then once you even learn something, then you realize, okay, whatever I've learned is not enough. I need to learn more. Plus, is it even worth putting this much effort in learning this thing? Will this thing even pay me off in future, right? A lot of questions around there. And even if you have completed your courses, even if you started your job, right, especially in your first job, you will definitely go through something called as an imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is called as self-doubting, right? Even if you know something, you might self-doubt. And this will exist because the world is huge, right? The space itself is huge.
So with this, we have come to the end of the conversation. Thank you so much, sir, for coming to Intellipaat.